Hey there. The summer afternoon drifted lazily through the neighborhood, carrying the laughter, shouts, and cheers of kids playing ball down the street. Their voices threaded through the warm breeze, brushing past the closed windows of a quiet room shaded by curtains that softened the sunlight into gentle patterns on the floor. Inside, the room was neat and organized, a personal world tucked away from the busy street outside. Posters of teen idols and pop stars adorned the door in a carefully haphazard way, and a large map of the world stretched across one wall, crisscrossed with faint pencil lines that traced imaginary journeys. The double bed in the center looked untouched for hours, flanked by two dressers and a television that blinked quietly in the corner. Lying on the bed, a boy rested on his side, head propped against a folded pillow, a slender figure at first glance, though a closer look revealed the delicate balance of youth still caught between childhood and the emerging awareness of who he was. His face was softly sculpted, cheeks dimpled and smooth, a nose small and precise, framed by thick hair that tumbled past his ears to brush his shoulders. In the corner window, a mobile of biplanes twirled gently, their shiny forms catching fragments of light as they circled endlessly, spinning in imaginary dogfights suspended in air. He watched them, tracing the arcs with a quiet fascination, losing himself in the motion, while a subtle, restless energy hummed in the back of his mind. Summer stretched on, a lazy, unstructured expanse of days that could be both a gift and a burden. Earlier, his friend Bob had stopped by, calling him to join the game, promising burgers and laughter afterward. But he had waved them off, inventing excuses about chores and responsibilities. Outside, the ball bounced and rolled across the grass, distant voices calling his name. Yet inside, he felt strangely content with his own company. He picked up a book, flipped a few pages of a stamp album, then set them aside, the objects failing to capture his attention. The quiet allowed his thoughts to drift into realms he rarely explored aloud. He turned his gaze toward the mirror above his dresser, studying the reflection staring back. At 5'4", his frame was slight, unassuming, and his hair, thick, unruly, almost defiant in its natural curl, framed his face in a way that made him look more like the girls in the magazines than the boys on the street. Hands ran through it instinctively, smoothing and pulling it back, aware of the soft resilience that resisted control, curling again once released. It struck him, a fleeting pang of longing that he might never look like the rugged, athletic type, that perhaps the path he imagined for himself in the world outside would never quite fit. He moved to his dresser, rifling through drawers until he found the envelopes and boxes he had stashed away. Small items of fascination and curiosity, hair accessories, brushes, and a few of his sister's old trinkets, now reclaimed for his private experiments. Each piece, from combs to clips, became a tool for transformation, a subtle alchemy of self-expression. He settled onto the bed, carefully examining the objects, arranging them with meticulous care, before beginning the quiet ritual that always made him feel both daring and tender. Slowly, deliberately, he began experimenting, smoothing hair into curls with rollers, tugging gently at straps and fabrics, observing how each movement changed his reflection. The textures, the scents, the way light caught on certain fabrics, it all felt deeply satisfying, a private celebration of creativity and personal style. He marveled at the small transformations, at the way his features could appear different, yet still wholly him, discovering a quiet joy in the reflection that seemed to smile back with new confidence. Outside, the sounds of summer continued, the rhythmic bounce of a ball, distant laughter, the occasional call of a friend. Inside, he was immersed in a different world, one governed by the soft hum of rollers, the delicate sweep of combs, the gentle tug of familiar fabrics. Each action was precise yet comforting, grounding him in a sense of control and self-understanding he didn't always find elsewhere. He could explore here, in the private sanctuary of his room, without judgment or interruption, discovering facets of himself that were only just beginning to take shape. A sudden noise at the door made him freeze. The metallic click of the knob was followed by a cautious opening, and his mother stepped in, momentarily startled to see him so absorbed. He scrambled to sit up to gather himself, but there was no panic, only a shared pause as their eyes met. "Danny, what are you doing?" she asked softly, concern lacing her voice. For a moment he struggled to find words, then simply whispered, "Just trying something." She approached slowly, her own movements measured, not intrusive but curious. "Trying what, dear?" she asked, her tone gentle but probing. He gestured vaguely to the array of rollers and fabrics, the small rituals of self-expression he had undertaken. She smiled faintly, a mixture of surprise and warmth, crouching beside him on the bed. "I didn't know you were interested in this," she said, her hand brushing a stray curl with careful fingers. "It's fine, Danny. Really." Her acceptance wrapped around him like a soft blanket. They talked quietly, carefully, the room filling with a sense of intimacy and understanding that was new, almost electric in its tenderness. She shared memories of his sisters, how they had explored these same rituals at his age, how hair and clothes were tools of creativity and self-expression, not just symbols of femininity or masculinity. He listened, captivated, as if discovering a secret world within the familiar patterns of family life, a place where curiosity and identity could flourish safely. For the next hours, he experimented under her guidance. Rollers were tightened just so, hair combed and adjusted with gentle precision. Fabrics were draped, fitted, and admired in the mirror. The simple act of styling became a ritual of exploration, each movement deliberate and mindful. He laughed at small missteps, relished the little triumphs, and felt an unfamiliar but welcome sense of pride in the reflection that looked back at him, a version of himself he had never dared to show before. Outside, the day continued, indifferent to the private universe unfolding in the shaded room. The neighborhood sounds became background music to the quiet symphony of discovery, each note of laughter or shout outside contrasting with the gentle cadence of brushes, rollers, and fabrics inside. He realized in a subtle, satisfying way that he could inhabit both worlds, the bustling, competitive playground outside and the quiet, self-determined haven within, and that each had value. His mother stood, finally, with a satisfied sigh, brushing her hands together as if to remove the last traces of her work. She smiled down at him, a knowing, gentle smile that spoke volumes. "There, beautiful. You see, Danny, it's not about being a boy or a girl, it's about expressing who you are." Her words, simple yet profound, lingered in his mind, settling like sunlight in the corners of the room. The rest of the morning passed in a comfortable rhythm. He helped his sisters, watched as his mother orchestrated the household with a practiced efficiency, and felt an awareness of connection and belonging that had previously eluded him. Each glance exchanged, each gesture shared, built a quiet bridge between curiosity and understanding, a foundation of trust and self-confidence. He carried the warmth of those moments with him, a private treasure tucked into the folds of a long summer day. By the time the afternoon sun began to dip, he felt a subtle shift in himself. The quiet exploration, the soft guidance of his mother, and the playful, distant energy of the neighborhood outside had intertwined to create a new sense of balance. He no longer felt the pang of isolation or the sting of difference. Instead, he recognized a space within himself that was safe, creative, and uniquely his own. The room, once a quiet retreat from the world, had become a stage of self-expression, a place where identity could unfold in ways both gentle and exhilarating. As he sat back on the bed, rolling the last few strands of hair into place, he let out a contented sigh. Outside, Bob's distant shouts echoed faintly, a reminder of the world waiting beyond the doors. but inside, in the soft filtered light of the summer room, he had discovered something more lasting, a quiet confidence, a curiosity embraced, and the understanding that self-expression in all its forms was a treasure to nurture, explore, and celebrate. The evening descended quietly over the neighborhood, painting the streets in long golden shadows and bathing the room in a soft amber glow. The distant sounds of children's laughter gradually faded into the rhythm of an ordinary summer evening, leaving a gentle stillness inside the house that felt both comforting and expectant. Danny sat on the edge of his bed, the last of the curls carefully set, the soft textures of fabric and hair resting against his skin in a way that felt like a private celebration of patience, curiosity, and self-discovery. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe fully, to feel the satisfaction of a quiet accomplishment, a ritual performed not for anyone else, but for himself. The soft hum of the ceiling fan stirred the warm air, mixing with the scent of freshly laundered clothes and faint hints of the dinner preparations drifting from the kitchen. He could hear his mother bustling softly, calling out instructions to his sisters, while carefully avoiding any mention of the small but significant world he had been exploring. And he felt a gentle swell of gratitude, a quiet recognition of the care and attention that had been extended to him, even without words. As he leaned back on the pillows, his gaze drifted across the familiar room that had served as both sanctuary and stage. Each object held a story, a memory, a choice. The posters on the door, once mere decoration, now felt like silent witnesses to his quiet acts of curiosity. The map on the wall, etched with the faint pencil lines of imaginary adventures, seemed to invite him to chart not just the world outside, but the inner terrain of identity and self-expression that he was beginning to explore. The mobile of biplanes, still twirling lazily in the corner, mirrored the motion of his thoughts, circling and intersecting, carrying him along invisible paths of reflection and imagination. Even the simple act of arranging hair rollers and combs had taken on a kind of reverent rhythm, each movement deliberate, thoughtful, almost ceremonial, as though he were learning not only about appearances, but about patience, care, and the quiet joy of crafting something with his own hands. There was a softness to the evening that invited contemplation, a rare pause in the constant motion of days filled with school, chores, and the occasional social pressures that seemed to hover just outside his room. He reflected on his morning, the hours spent experimenting with textures and shapes, the small but profound moments of guidance from his mother, who had approached the experience not with judgment, but with curiosity, empathy, and encouragement. In those moments, Danny had discovered a deeper understanding of connection and trust, and he could feel, almost physically, the subtle expansion of his own self-confidence. The quiet intimacy of shared space, shared knowledge, and unspoken understanding had transformed what could have been embarrassment or fear into an exploration of creativity and identity. A sense of freedom that had little to do with the world outside and everything to do with the world he was building inside himself. As he continued to straighten the last few curls, his thoughts wandered to his sisters. Susan, with her long brown hair and the effortless confidence she carried, had become, in his mind, both a mirror and a model. Watching her hair set, the careful attention of their mother guiding each twist and roll into place, had been a revelation. The work involved in creating a personal expression, the care required, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing a transformation completed. Debbie, with her wild, playful energy, had brought a different perspective, a reminder that experimentation could be lighthearted and full of joy, and that self-expression did not always require precision or ceremony. Between the two, Danny found a spectrum of inspiration, each sister demonstrating facets of creativity, confidence, and individuality that he could adapt in his own ways, in his own time and in his own private space. The thought of his father's return lingered at the back of his mind, a gentle hum of anticipation mingled with apprehension. Long-distance work and truck driving meant his father's presence was often brief, intense, and marked by routines and expectations. Yet Danny felt a quiet desire to share the subtle discoveries of the day, even if only through the assurance of behavior, care, and self-awareness. There was an unspoken hope that by cultivating a deeper understanding of himself and his own sense of aesthetics and discipline, he might bridge the gaps between expectation and identity, between the external world and the internal. He imagined the evening conversation over dinner, the subtle glances, the gentle teasing, and the soft, reassuring words from a parent who, while practical and disciplined, could also recognize growth, effort, and individuality. Outside, the air shifted with the cooling of the sun, and the faint buzz of cicadas replaced the rhythmic bounce of a ball. Danny's attention returned to the room, to the textures, shapes, and reflections that had consumed his morning. He stood and moved slowly to the mirror, studying the intricate patterns of curls and the subtle interplay of light on fabric and hair. Each observation brought a new sense of fascination, a quiet marvel at how deliberate actions could yield visible and tangible results. The rollered curls were not merely aesthetic. They represented exploration, patience, and the careful articulation of self in a form that was both private and profoundly meaningful. He traced the shapes with his fingers, noting the balance, symmetry, and softness, marveling at how small acts could carry such a significant emotional weight. The ritual extended into an afternoon that seemed both suspended in time and full of significance. Danny experimented further, blending textures, rearranging fabrics, and testing subtle variations in hair placement, discovering the delicate harmony between creativity and discipline, between impulse and intention. He realized that the true satisfaction lay not just in the final image, but in the process itself, the quiet, patient exploration, the awareness of minute details, the iterative adjustments that made each session a meditation in self-expression. In this, he discovered a rhythm, a quiet musicality in the mundane, a way to inhabit time fully and deliberately, each movement carrying significance far beyond the immediate sensory experience. The door opened gently at intervals, his mother checking in with a soft voice, offering suggestions and encouragement, creating a space of safety and acceptance where he could explore without fear or judgment. Her words, casual yet deliberate, were infused with subtle lessons: how to attend to detail, how to appreciate the textures and shapes, how to see oneself not as constrained by external categories, but as a creator of one's own expression. Each interaction, small and seemingly ordinary, became a profound affirmation, a recognition that identity could be nurtured, explored, and celebrated in quiet, mindful ways. Danny soaked in these moments, letting the guidance and reassurance shape his own understanding, embedding them into the fabric of his self-conception. As the evening deepened, he reflected on the day's events, the shifts in awareness, and the subtle evolution of confidence. The shadows on the walls lengthened, blending with the golden light to create a cocoon of warmth and safety. He felt a growing sense of mastery, not only over the textures and styles of hair and fabric, but over the inner turbulence of curiosity, uncertainty, and desire for acceptance. The room had become a crucible for understanding, a space where internal and external harmonies could converge, allowing him to navigate the complex interplay of identity, aesthetics, and familial relationships with grace, patience, and delight. With the final curl in place, Danny sank back onto the bed, gazing at his reflection one last time before rising to help with evening preparations. He realized that these acts of exploration, though small and personal, had revealed essential truths: that identity could be expressed safely and creatively, that curiosity was not something to hide but to nurture, And that family, when attentive and empathetic, could become a powerful ally in self-discovery. He smiled at the mirror, seeing not just hair and fabric, but the quiet blossoming of self-awareness, the emergence of confidence, and the joy of inhabiting his own space fully and authentically. Dinner approached, the household shifting from private reflection to shared routines. Danny moved with ease, carrying the lessons of the day, patience, attention, creativity, and acceptance, into the communal space. He noticed subtle changes in posture, in tone, in interaction, a confidence rooted not in rebellion or assertion, but in the quiet mastery of self-expression. The table became a stage not of performance, but of shared understanding, where he could exist fully as himself, informed by curiosity, guided by care, and supported by the gentle presence of family who respected his growth and exploration. As night fell and the stars began to appear, Danny returned to his room, the rituals of the day still alive in his mind and body. The curls in his hair held the memory of deliberate care. The fabrics, the story of experimentation, and the quiet laughter of his mother and sisters, the affirmation that he belonged fully and safely in the intertwined worlds of imagination, expression, and family. He lay back, the ceiling fan spinning above, and let himself drift into a thoughtful contentment, aware that tomorrow would bring new opportunities for exploration, creativity, and the gentle expansion of identity. He closed his eyes, feeling the textures and forms he had created, imagining new arrangements, new patterns, new discoveries. The summer night, warm and calm, wrapped the house in quietude, while Danny, suspended between the past day's experiments and the promise of tomorrow, felt a profound and unshakable sense of self, acceptance, and possibility. Each breath, each small adjustment of hair or fabric, each thought reflected an unfolding story of growth and understanding, a testament to the quiet power of curiosity, creativity, and familial love. In the darkened room, with only the soft hum of the fan and the distant murmur of the night outside, Danny's reflection in the mirror became more than a simple image. It was a record of discovery, resilience, and the joy of inhabiting one's own identity. The rituals he had embraced, guided by love and curiosity, had transformed a simple afternoon into a journey of understanding, an intimate exploration of what it meant to be fully himself. As the hours passed and the house settled into quiet slumber, Danny lay back, eyes closed, heart full, knowing that self-expression, confidence, and identity were treasures to be explored, cherished, and celebrated. Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now, in the delicate interplay of light, texture, and thought.